following podcast is brought to you exclusively by the Rad Rob Radio Network.
This is PBA champion Kyle Troop.
Hey y'all, Jacob Wetrup here.
Jeff Riggles here from 11thframe.com.
Hey guys, Chuck Ritchie here, formerly of Bowl TV.
Hey guys, this is Ryan Schaefer of track staff at Valley Bowling Center in Waverly, New York.
And you're listening to Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr.
Yo, the boys from Straight Up 5, Rad Rob, Dr Ocho, and of course JP Jr.
Pick it out. Fear the fro, baby.
Welcome to Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr. A hard-hitting, in-depth, cutting-edge look into the world of bowling. This podcast will not only cover all things bowling, but will also give you a raw look into real-life issues. You'll get unfettered access into the mind of one of the most gifted bowlers of this or any other generation.
Strike, and they claim it. Somebody does it!
So without further ado, let's introduce you to the hosts of the show. Rad Rob, Rob Francois. Rad Rob, Rob Francois. Dr Ocho. Dr Ocho. And the incomparable Johnny Petraglia Jr. Johnny Petraglia Jr.
Hey guys, welcome back to Straight Up 5 with Johnny Petraglia Jr. And I am your host, the one and only Rad Rob, Rob Francois. It's been a while since I had Popeyes, but you know, it's all good. Hold on. Blame Rob. What'd I do? Because I was late? Nah, that's fair. Actually, it's Ocho's fault. We were waiting for him, and he's always fashionably late. He couldn't decide which mask to wear tonight, but without any further ado, God, I do so much. And I do so little at the same time. Let's bring in our first co-host. He is a man with the golden mask. He is the resident doctor of Straight Up 5, the largest guns in the world. The fourth best bowler on this show, Dr. Ocho. Good evening, Och. Thanks for showing up.
You sweat a lot. That's another thing you do.
That's fair. What's going on, buddy?
Nothing. Let's go. Quit sticking around.
Yeah, I screwed up. This is episode 102.
Criminy.
In my haste or my waste of my time working for a living, I screwed up. That was my bad. Let's bring in our third co-host. Oh Jesus! Third person. Second co-host.
Just bring Johnny in for Christ's sakes. God, you suck episodes and you're getting worse. This is awful. Did you get his name right? At least this time, maybe you didn't get his name right. And you haven't had Popeyes in a long time. What is 4 days a long time or something? Or 8 hours is a long time, maybe.
Our other co-host is the man with the name. Shut up. See, you tell me to go
3 hours ago.
Are you done?
I'm done when I'll say I'm done. Hurry up.
Obviously, he's not there with you. Why not?
What are you talking? Just go. Ready? Introduce him.
Here is our second co-host, the man with the name of the marquee. He is the man that everyone loves. Number 7 on your program, number 1 in your hearts, the sexiest man in the world, Mr. Johnny Petraglia Jr. What's up, JP? Oh, you're muted. See?
No, I know. I'm always.
Can you tell me I suck, Coach? Come on.
What are you doing? See, he even fucked me up there. I didn't even know what. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's good to be back. It's good to be home. Ocho, I hope you and the baby feel better. Ocho got diagnosed with he is ill, which is the main reason why I'm home tonight. But it's good to be.
A new STD also. They haven't even named it yet.
Oh well, I'm sorry to hear that. I thought it was just good old COVID.
No,
might just name it the Ocho.
They're trying to incorporate Ocho and biceps and inflammation and like engorging, so it's more like kind of like bicepatitis, kind of thing with a purulent discharge.
Nice.
Sweet Jesus.
All things considered, figured you'd be a little deflated, with not feeling. Apparently, you're not.
You'd think even COVID can't hold Ocho down. My gosh, are you crazy?
That is fair.
Imagine if the camera quality was a little bit better.
Don't worry about that. That's why it looks puffy.
All right, then.
Let's do what we normally do. It's our customary thing here to do is play a highlight package of our guests. We have a very, very special guest tonight, Mr. Michael Haugen Jr. Did I get it right?
Hey, said it right.
Yeah, at least you got it right, you bozo.
I never said it was good, ever.
Never knows anybody else. So we're all on the same page with that.
Let's take a look at the career of the one and only PBA superstar, Michael Haugen Jr. And it's coming. Hold on.
Eventually.
It's loading. There we go.
That's what he needs. Michael Haugen on tour since 1994. Can he finally break through for a win? Big less a lot. Rip it from his grasp.
Ten-pin. Michael Haugen Jr. wins his first title and knocks Kurt Pelon out of the Tournament of Champions.
He wins it on the bench. Finally, the long wait is over for Michael Haugen Jr. 13 years, 200 events, and he's got a championship.
Oh my God, I cannot believe it. Oh my God, I'm taking this now, Corey, I don't care. Celebrates, Barnes picks himself up off the wood. What an improbable comeback for Michael Haugen Jr. winning his first major. Left the set and gone behind the black curtains while Michael Haugen Jr. celebrates an improbable.
If he doesn't strike on this ball, it's over. 2 strikes in 9, we have a tie.
Haugen, I'm not sure he can watch this. Craig will have to.
Norton has been so strong this week, that's trouble. And that is the end of the match. Exactly how he gave the opening to Michael Haugen Jr.
Great bowler. Sorry you ended up like that, brother, but thank you.
Thank you. Nice bowling.
Scott Norton comes up short. Michael Haugen Jr. with his 3rd PBA title. It comes at the age of 46 with the Mark Robb Classic.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Mark Robb here to offer his congratulations to Haugen.
Does he move in and give it the business? What does he do? If I was him, I'd move in just a little bit more and I'd make sure I caught it for all it's worth, let it feed just to the right, have it flip, 10 in the pit. One shot away from the PBA Tour title, Martin Less. Ball in hand, 10th frame.
Michael Haugen Jr. claims his 4th PBA Tour title. And Haugen heads over immediately to collect a kiss from BT.
Thank you, man. Sorry.
Haugen wins the title with splits in the 10th. And a fiery Michael Haugen Jr. claims the Scorpion Championship.
This is a very, very high-scoring match for such demanding conditions that they're bowling on right now. There is a reason why these two guys are in this position right now.
Ten times. That's a winner. And now a little something extra.
That is a winner. That is a huge 10 executed shots in a row
Michael, congratulations. We talked right before the match, and you said your game is obsolete. I don't believe it. Congratulations on your win here tonight.
Still 230 max score for Walter Ray Williams Jr., but he ran into a buzzsaw, and he had horrible carry on the right lane. And
of course he strikes on the right lane, and now the left lane takes off.
Yep.
How about a nice round of applause for the greatest of all time, Walter Ray Williams Jr. Michael, congratulations on winning your second PBA 50 event.
It's not like he hasn't been in this position before. Did he throw the last 5 or 6 against Chris Barnes to win that title? He was 51 pins back.
Give him a chance to lock it up. That was solid. One of the best shots we've seen this game from Michael Haugen Jr.
Rookie of the year last year, second win here this year. You've got a major, another title. You won in New York. Talk a little bit about the win this week and what was your secret?
Maybe getting lucky was my secret.
Here he is. Excuse me. God, I had a frog in my throat. Here he is, the one and only Mr. Michael Haugen Jr. Good evening, Mike. Thanks for being on the show, brother.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
That's quite the highlight reel we had there. A lot of your victories came, not into no fault of your own, came on the bench. What was it like winning your first championship? They said it was, 200 events in 12 years? That's quite a long time. How did it feel when you finally got there?
It's hard to go back that long and figure that out, but it was an unbelievable feeling. We're all bowlers, and we were watching a couple weeks ago. If you watch golf, the amateur won the golf tournament, and they asked him, you're putting, and this putt's for the Masters, and this putt's for the U.S. Open or whatever, and we can all say that we were bowling practice shots at home, and this strike was to win the Tournament of Champions, or this was to beat Mark Roth or Johnny's dad or Earl Anthony or whoever, and it's so true. You get there, and it's kind of unreal. You can play the game, and you're capable of doing it, but until it actually happens, you always doubt yourself a little bit. You always wonder what if, and as alluding to your comment about being on the bench, winning, well, I was fortunate enough to be the higher seed to choose to finish the match first and, put the pressure on my opponent in those matches. And, they did. Luckily for me, they didn't, strike when I needed them to not strike. Right. Obviously West threw a great shot and rang a 10, and, Barnes missed a 10 pin in the 9th, and then, 2 pin, 4 pin in the 10th for me to beat him. And, Norton opened in the 10th for me. Martin opened in the 10th for me. And, Bill and I both had the front 10 at him. So, he opened early for me, and I was fortunate that I, never let him back in the match. So
honestly, sorry to cut you off, Mike. And a couple of those opens, technically, they were still a shot for the weed. Forget the fact that 6 counted. I looked at both of those matches. If they get those hits, it's a 1-pin game. I was analyzing more so the amount of close matches you have, regardless of the score. I see like 2-team. Obviously, who can ever forget your TSC win over Barnes? I think you were down, 50-something pins halfway through that match?
Yeah, it was like 50, 52, 53 down with 4 to go, some stupid number like that.
I remember that like it was yesterday. I was still in college in Youngstown, Ohio. But yeah, a lot of Super Club, the Bill O'Neill matches, what'd you wind up shooting that game with the front 10 and Bill having 260?
289. I 4-pinned the next shot and, spared for 289. So, yeah, funny story about that show. We were warming up for the top 5 warm up, and, Kyle was on that show, and Kyle Troop was throwing a pitch black, and he was, he had some surface on it, and he was basically drying up, 5 and out pretty well for me. And I don't remember how much time we get, but I remember telling him, if he continues to throw that ball, I'm going to shoot 300 in the title match. And And he looked at me kind of funny, and I said, just keep doing it because I'm going to shoot 300 if you continue to use this pitch black and warm up. And he ended up switching to a dull haywire the last few minutes of practice, which actually made him even better for me.
Sure, from both ways.
When I was warming up, I was throwing the lock on both lanes with a little bit of surface on it. And by the time I had got to the title match, because I was top seed, I was throwing the lock on the right lane, but the left lane had hooked a little bit more in the front, and I had to throw a matchup pearl on the left lane. But I played him exactly the same. I stood in the same place on both lanes, hit the same target, and threw it, about to the same place, and had the front 10. So I almost proved it right, So it's kind of funny.
That's funny. I hadn't heard that story. What was it that finally clicked? Do you know? What were your results like the first 12 years? Were you making shows? Were you missing a lot of cuts? Like, what was going on with your game during that drought?
Well, I mean, so I went full time in '98. I decided I won Player of the Year in '97, and I remember coming home to the family Christmas dinner and saying, hey guys, I'm going to go on tour. And, they all were like, oh man, those guys are pretty good. And, what are you going to do? And, we don't want you to fail and this and that, and I was like, look, I'm single and I've got some money in the bank. And if I go out there and don't make it, who cares? I'm only hurting myself. So instead of finding all these different reasons why you think I can't do it, why don't you just find one reason that we can, and that you believe in me and you think I can do it. And my family immediately changed their mind and became very supportive of that. And, I went out in '98 full time, and the third tournament I made a show. I finished 5th. I got beat by Houston, but I made a show. And then the following year I made another show. And then I think I made, I made 2, one in '99. I don't think I made any in 2000, but I think I made 2 in 2001. And then it was like the roller coaster, you go up and you go up and down, but I mean, the big one in 2001 was, when I made the final and I lost to Weber when I bowled 279 and he bowled 289,
that show, it was yesterday too.
Yeah.
I still remember that one,
yeah.
him throwing his glasses. And again, from a fan's perspective, what fun spectacle. I don't know that it felt good, but you were so graceful. And he seemed kind of graceful after he did his antics and shook your hand. And, the whole, he ain't getting his first one against me. And what a sportsmanship, sports. It was very good sportsmanship on your end to let him do his thing. It was great theater.
Yeah,
I got to tell you.
I will say,
superb theater.
As far as a bowling fan goes, and I can be a bowling fan of a show I'm in or obviously not in. And to me, it was one of the most exciting matches I've ever watched on television.
So fun to hear you say that.
It just was. And I'm going to preface some of this. So in 1996, I bowled my first 2 national tour stops. I bowled one in my hometown in Southern California, and I shot 300 that week, and I didn't cash, but they had a pool, and I got $300 back for shooting 300. And I went to my job and I said, hey, can I take next week off and go to Vegas and bowl? And they're like, sure, go ahead. I go to Vegas. It's the long format. You bowl 3 8-game blocks over 3 days. You make a cut, you bowl 8 more, then you make a cut, and you bowl 24 games of match play than the show. Well, long story short, I made the 4 8-game blocks. I survived, and I made the cut to match play. And my buddy and I are walking out to the truck to go drill some bowling balls. And if you remember the showboat, they had 72 lanes, and you had to go all the way across all 72 lanes. And then right by lane 1 was the pro shop. Well, you went past the pro shop and you turned right, you went down the hallway, you went out to the parking lot, and that's where the PBA truck was. Yep. Well, as I'm making that turn and I'm going down the hallway to go to the truck, Pete Weber is sitting on the ground. He's having a cigarette and having a drink and talking to his buddy. And he stops the conversation with his buddy. And he says, Michael. And I turn around, I go, yes, sir. And he goes, that was great bowling this week. And you deserve to be here. Don't let anybody take anything away from you. And good luck this week. That was my first impression of Pete speaking, not watching him, not anything else. But that was my first conversation with Pete Weber. And I got to tell you, that's always stayed with me. And when he bowled me in 2001 on the show, the reason why he made the comment, he ain't getting his first one against me, no way, was he had a streak where he was on the show and people were winning their first titles against him that had never won before. And he's like, oh my God, here comes another kid who's going to come up here and he's trying to win his first one against me.
And,
you know,
and he just recently gave you the okay, like you belong here, and go get him, like giving you the attaboy almost. And then here you are about to give him a smoke screen on his title. Wow.
Well,
that's a great item.
You're in a battle, so anything goes. And if you remember that match, Pete is obviously he's very flamboyant, he's very energetic, and he's intense, but he's a competitor. I love that about him. And I started talking crap to him first, and it wasn't anything disrespectful. It was just, we were just talking. We were just going back and forth at each other.
I ain't going anywhere. I'll be
right.
here. I
And
got
just
you.
little things like that.
Stuff.
And so the whole match, we did that. So when he said what he said, I had no issue with it at all. And you can't hear it because the crowd's going crazy and Randy's talking or whatever. But when he gets the 10th one to beat me, I'm in the background going, hey, Pete, calm down. You still got 2 more shots here. I want to see you hit 300 at this point.
Right.
And
Now you're right. Good for you.
And he doesn't. He gets up and just flings it, and he just flings it off and gets his 9 and makes a spare. And then if you notice, he goes, like this, he goes, I'm by you now, Dad. And what people don't remember about that show, they just remember that he ain't getting his first one against me and the glasses coming off or whatever. But him beating me was the show that he passed his dad in PBA Tour titles. So I can't blame him for being the way he was. And, and he's always been animated, and it's just Pete being Pete. And you love him or you hate him. On the lanes, I love the energy. I love the intensity. Great guy. Now I'm going to flip sides real quick. In 2007, I think it was 2007, 2006, I made a show in Indiana. And the night before I was at Chili's, and Pete was there with Tracy, and he came over to my table and he's like, hey, Mike, good luck tomorrow. I hope you win, do your thing and blah, blah, blah. Well, I didn't win that show, but a year later I made another show, and I'm bowling Pete in the round of 8 to get to the show. And I beat Pete 4-1 or 4-2. I forget what it was, but I beat him. He had to win 4. And when I beat him, I just start screaming out at the foul line. I'm like, and I turn around and I come over, and Pete's waiting for me by the ball return. And I shook his hand and I said, man, I'm really sorry about the outburst. And he says, you made the show. You can do whatever you want. I don't care. Well, what Pete didn't know, and what a lot of people didn't know that week, was my grandmother was passing away. And her seeing me on the show that week was going to be the last time that she's going to ever see me bowl again. So
wow.
I went back after I shook Pete's hand, and I grabbed my roommate at the time, and we're hugging each other and we're crying because we know what it's for. Tracy looks over and she goes, Michael, why are you crying? You've made plenty of shows. And I go, my grandma's passing, and this is going to be the last time she's going to see me. So she comes around the corner. Now she's crying with me. Pete turns around after finishing the match, and he goes, what the hell's going on here? Tracy tells him, Michael's grandma's passing, and he's made this show for her basically. And this is the last time that he's going to see her. She's going to see him bowl. He's crying. So the 4 of us are in this group hug, and we're crying. Now, you can tell plenty of stories about Pete doing things maybe he should or shouldn't do or whatever. And some of it's deserved and some of it's not, but people don't hear the other part of Pete. Pete will give you the shirt off his back if you give him just a few minutes to get off the lanes and calm down after bowling. You let him go in the locker room and come back. Pete will buy your first drink. Pete will sit down and bullshit with you for 20 minutes if you want. He's just that kind of guy. People don't see that side of Pete. So I have a slightly different relationship with him, and man, I'm grateful for that because, he really is a good guy
this
deep
is
down.
great to hear, man.
Oh, absolutely.
It wasn't like, like after he did his stuff, I even remember talking to JP about it last week. And I said, what I remember about it though, after the antics, still during the show, went up to you. Great bowling, great job. Like he did his show, and then he still shook your hand and gave you props and wasn't, didn't do the in your face or anything like that. So I was like, we get it. It's a show and it has to be a little bit of spectacle, and yet still gracious in defeat, gracious in victory. It's just what I noticed about it too, which I guess people probably don't notice.
Right.
And another thing, real quick, we shouldn't have said drought, by the way, because I just stumbled across for the events you were in. Man, you cashed like 90% of the time. It looks like. I mean, you went.
That might be generous.
Was times where you I mean, unless I'm looking at the wrong thing, there was 20 events, 20 cashes. 19 events, 18 cashes. You know what I mean? There was. Right from the PBA website. So unless they're fudging stuff, don't hear it here first.
Let me stop you there, Doctor. Let me stop you right there. The PBA website has gone through some changes over the years, and
have they skewed their numbers? Or we?
Well, I don't know that they're 100% correct. That the PBA, they had a lady named Barb Wilt who was a phenomenal lady that worked for the PBA, and she was phenomenal at keeping all kinds of statistics and stats and basically keeping that thing going and doing her job. And when the quote unquote Microsoft guys came in and got involved with the PBA, some things changed, and some of these numbers, they're not accurate. I mean, I'd love to say I cashed 90% of the tournaments I bowled, but I think that's very far-fetched.
Well, I mean, there was times where it said, 20 events, 8 cashes, but still that's, I don't even think that's bad, especially, but there was, it did say you went 20 for 20 1 year and 19 or 18 of 19 1 year. And I'm not sure if maybe that, I think it was well-deserved anyway, because also we don't see, if you're not on TV, we think everybody sucks, us casual fans.
That's a great point. Also be reading off the years of the exempt roster.
Say it again, Johnny.
When you were an exempt player, when they had the field of 64 every week.
Yes.
There a period where there was a guarantee? I'm trying to think of what era or what year he's looking in. Is it possible that you pulled up a block Ocho of when the exempt tour were all guaranteed checks weekly?
That's possible because
for maybe 1 year. Obviously we all know you cashed a lot, but I mean, rather than saying that the whole system may be skewed, I have a feeling that may be what you're reading or have read, Ocho. But
I got you.
I was just curious about it. I have an off-subject question if we're ready for that for Michael. That's a little bit out of left field, but I'm sure you've been asked a million times.
This is what we do on Straight Up 5 anyway, so.
Pretty much.
There had to come a point in your career, for anybody that doesn't know this already, Michael used to wear tennis shoes, and I'm assuming you still wear brake soles on both shoes now, right?
Yes, sir.
When did you, for instance, I don't use my thumb anymore. But I don't use my thumb anymore. But I remember the day that I knew that I could do something without my thumb in the ball. When did you decide in your bowling game, hey, I like the feel of non-marking rubber soles over any slide sole?
So I worked in a bowling center as a kid. I was in my teens. And like all of us, we grab balls and we screw around and throw shots. And we don't change our shoes. We just go bowl. And I got comfortable doing it. I don't remember the day it happened, but I can tell you that, before I was doing it when I was bowling regional. So that had to be 93, 94. I was already doing it. I know we tried to slide at some point and I threw 4 shots and I fell 3 times and I said, put my tennis shoes back on. I'm done. That was the end of it.
So
I know it's created. Yeah. I mean, basically obviously my whole PBA career has been all tennis shoes or sure. Basically, like you said, you call them brake soles, but yeah, whatever, non-slide soles, whatever.
Right.
I used to wear the Vans on TV and they were fine, but I think at the time Bobby Laster was working for Dexter and he said, hey, I'll make you a pair of shoes that have the non-slide soles if you wear them. And I said, well, they look better than tennis shoes, so sure, I'll wear them. And I've kind of stayed with them ever since. So, but I've been thinking about going back tennis shoes.
The second part of that question is, as you've gotten a little older, I would always assume you may experience a little knee trouble or do you find that you're physically still as able to do it with planting at the line as you were, say, 20, 30 years ago, aside from the normal aging process that we all go through?
Yeah. Now I did have a knee surgery in 2011. And when I had the surgery, they basically cut the knee open. And they cut it straight down. There was a ligament. They said the ligament was actually growing down and growing back up. So they cut the ligament in half, cleaned up around the knee, straightened the ligament.
Patellar ligament, or you're talking about the is it with the patellar tendon or the patellar ligament? Did they say which one? Was it underneath or was it on top?
Probably on top. Probably
top.
on
So you're
top.
talking the patellar ligament then. So you basically got calcified probably from maybe planting so much. Is that what did they give you any indication?
The funny thing is I asked the doctor about that, and they said, well, what did you do growing up? Well, I used to run cross country in high school. So basically I'd go out and run 5 to 10 miles a day on the concrete. And then I would run home and change clothes and then go down to the school and play basketball till dark. So I was on the concrete from.
So you took a pounding regardless, and both knees are probably pretty beat to hell.
Right. So I don't know. Well, the right knee's not terrible. So that's why I think bowling has something to do with it.
I'm sure, especially with it being asymmetrical like that. And that's obviously your literally plant leg. How did I miss Vans? Did they have the checkers on them too? Like, did I miss that?
Oh, yeah. Actually, no. I think the two shows I made, I think, was a solid white pair and a solid black pair. But I think at one time before they made the non-slide bowling shoes for me, I think I did have a checkered pair at one time I was wearing.
That's badass. That is badass.
I wore one sneaker and one bowling shoe. I don't know why. My non-slide foot was a sneaker. My slide foot was a
chicken grease.
Was a Linz, I think. Linz or Dex. I think it was Linz. Thanks, Ocho.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
A lot of guys have done that, Rob. They've, you see a lot of guys around wearing a tennis shoe on their right foot, or in Johnny's case, on their left foot, if he decided to do that. But yeah, a lot of guys have done that. But I wore tennis shoes. I think Jeff Stavrik wore tennis shoes on TV one time. I think he wore high tops. So I think we were the first two, and he obviously did it before I did. And I just did it because, God, I think one year I was bowling league, and I was just slipping a little bit, and I put my tennis shoes on, and all of a sudden my feet were back underneath me, and I think that's when that was the moment, Johnny. That was probably the aha moment,
There it is.
It was like I think it was in Valley View, Southern California, Orange County. I was bowling league, and I was slipping a little bit, and I was bowling with Glenn Allison of all people.
Oh, wow.
And I said, I'm tired of slipping. I'm going to put my tennis shoes on. I put my tennis shoes on, and I started, planting shots again, and just sticking them. And Glenn goes, "Don't ever put bowling shoes on again."
Now, did you get a lot of the opposite crowd throughout your career saying, or like even like when you were younger, son, you need to put on some bowling shoes. You're gonna wreck your body.
Yeah, you're gonna scuff the lane or so. I don't know. Don't they? Do they ever say
I'm sure
something
you had
like
to hear that also 100 times.
Yeah, I got a little bit of that. When I first started bowling league, I got some guys tell me, that I would never amount to anything more than a good house hack, wearing tennis shoes and not sliding. I was never going to make it. And, for me, it's kind of weird. I mean, it's going to sound stupid or this crowd, you guys would understand it completely because you're East Coast and I love the East Coast. But I'm kind of like the Eminem of bowling. You want to get me to bowl? Well, just talk some shit and fire me up. Tell me I can't do something. And like Eminem says, you feel the fire. And, like when they had the PBA league that first year, I didn't get picked. And I went out and won the Mark Roth that very season. They didn't pick me. And I was like, okay, screw you guys. And, I went out and won the Mark Roth, and, I understand I was coming off of injury. There was some question marks, would I be able to go? Would I be 100%, whatever? So I understand why they didn't pick me and all that, but I just used it as motivation and went out and won, and the funny story about that, Terrell Owens was one of the owners of the team or managers of the team, whatever he was doing at the time. And he had some guy with him. And we were on the other side warming up, and the guy goes, "How come you're not bowling on a team over there?" And I go, "Didn't get picked." And he goes, "But aren't you bowling for the title later?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he goes, "Doesn't make any sense to me." And I said, "Didn't make any sense to me either, sir, but that's the way it is." So, luckily I got to go up.
Now I'm letting them know why it made no sense, and that's how I'm going to win this thing. Right. I mean, look,
So
that's literally one of the most innate, like our innate intelligence motivates us automatically like that. It's inborn almost.
Absolutely.
Totally.
It seems to be a history of that with people getting not picked for the league and having some kind of retribution or revenge later on. We've seen it several times, especially with Simonelli last year. So that's kind of funny that not funny that happened to you, but good that you actually got your comeuppance after all that. So.
Well, I mean, let's be real here. We play in an individual sport, and we're competing against the best bowlers in the world. And you have to have some ego, right, to be competitive and
sure,
and to be able to perform when you need to perform. Now, that doesn't mean you need to be an asshole, but you have to have some ego. And I'm not one to run around and tell everybody how great I am and this and that, because to me, great means the Hall of Fame, and I'm not in the Hall of Fame, so I'm just below great. However, there's a lot of guys that would say I wouldn't have minded his career, and at the end of the day, that speaks for itself. So, I don't need to run around and tell anybody anything. But when you tell me that I'm not good enough, and basically that's what you told me when you didn't pick me to be on a team, okay, let me show you.
I mean, the way I look at it, great. I mean, sure, it's subjective, but if you beat the best guys in the world at your craft, even one time, man, you're pretty, I don't want to say pretty damn good, because you were the best at what you do at that moment against the whole competition, the entire field, and you did it multiple, 6 times, I think, on the regular tour.
And
I think I forget how it was. How many was it? 5 or 6 on the regular tour, and then you got a 5. All right, I knew it. But still, and that's there's people. You're right. No, they might want that one day you had. That's it. You know what I mean? There's people that'll say, "Okay, that one feeling to win that title," and they'll never get it. Millions of people on this beautiful ball floating around the sun, and you got to do it a bunch of times, and I think that's pretty damn great if you ask me. I ain't blowing smoke, just from a perspective outside of what you guys always deal with.
Well, I'll blow the smoke then, because I want to add to that, because what I was originally going to say was, a long time ago when I still had aspirations of going on tour, my dad used to say to me, he goes, you can do it there's like a few different ways you can be successful on tour. You can be really, really good at everything, or you could be good at everything and really, really exceptional or great at one or two things. And the prime example that we always use during the time, and remember, this is like early 90s. I'm not talking about like the legend that he's become, the Hall of Famer I believe that he's become, but I'm talking about Doug Kent. Dad always used to say, Doug Kent is so good at everything, right? And he was, Doug Kent, and still is, just good at everything. But Doug Kent was really, really great at this. Or Norm Duke is really good at everything, but Norm Duke's really great at this. Michael, you're what you've done against in the power bowling world, in the crankers, the two-handers, the
rev guys, the high rev.
The accuracy that you display in order to achieve at the highest level what you've achieved is, in my eyes, one of the biggest testaments to your ability as a professional. It's like when I can't hit the same spot twice, let alone hit a dime 40 feet away from me for an entire tournament on a 1-to-1 ratio like we've seen you do. So, like, aside from being good at everything, because I've seen you fall it back from the fourth arrow, I've seen you curve it in the track area, I've seen you play the rail, but like your greatness lies in your just dead balls accuracy. Thanks, Marissa Tomei. But that's at least what I see as an outsider.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And like, let's make no joke about it. I mean, all the shows I've won, really, with probably the exception of the PBA 50 in Farmingdale, where we bowled on 37 feet, where you did have to throw it to the gutter a little bit, I'm going down the lane on this show. But, again, you got to play to your strength. And you win playing to your strength. Very few players win playing their C game or D game on the tour. It's just, it's too hard. It's too deep. Things change. Could I get there doing it other ways? Sure. But you never saw me win hooking the lane, and you probably never will. And that's okay. We do what we do best. And when we get our opportunity, I almost like a left-hander, Johnny, when I get my shot, I better be ready to take it, because I may not see it for a few weeks afterwards, so I better be ready to take it when it's there. And Dr. Dean Hintz spoke to me a little bit after I won the tournament against Barnes, and he said that he wasn't like surprised that I did it, because he knew me, he knew my character and so forth, but he tried to explain to people that while it was great that I came back from 52 pins to win this match, I made 2 ball changes, but I stayed ready so that when the opportunity presented itself that I could win the match, after getting my ass pummeled for 6 frames, that I was able to make the change. And when it came down to make the shots to force, the guy to force Barnes to double to beat me, that I did put him in that position. He says a lot of guys wouldn't be ready to do it at that moment. They would have already given up. They wouldn't have been able to rebound or whatever. And Dr. Dean always said that he loved that about me, and he likes to use that as an example that not only were you ready to win, you took advantage of it, and you did win when you got that opportunity. And obviously someone in the chat made a comment about the tenacity and the will to win and never giving up. I've always had that since I was a kid. I play everything to win. I can enjoy the
killer
game.
Instinct, man. We've talked about that, and that's why the cream rises to the top. That's why we see the same.
And it's amazing
30
how
guys,
every champion we have has the exact same mentality.
Exactly.
Yep.
They don't want to let their foot off the throttle one single bit, because then they're going to lose they don't want to lose any edge possible. And that's just, it's a wild mindset that a lot of just, I guess, regular folk, I don't want to label anybody, but that's why there's only a certain amount of winners on the PBA tour.
That's right.
It's an elite bowler. It's really an elite athlete's mentality, no matter what sport you're in. I mean, the cream always rises to the top. The best always have that edge, that extra, gear to switch to, when it comes crunch time. And, whenever you were on and you had the opportunity, for the most part, you took it. I mean, we know Belmo lost 17 majors on TV that, he could have won 4 or 5 of them that would have, eclipsed anybody that would ever do that. Walter Ray, lost a lot of shows. Even the best in the world screw up at one time. But I think for the number of your appearances, I think you did fairly well. I don't know your total record on TV. But once it finally clicked and you got your first, you were very successful from then on out.
Yeah, I was pretty fortunate. I mean, it's a learning process. So the first show I one and done, I lost to Houston. He bowled 277 at me. Thanks for coming. Second show, I beat Duluth the first game. Duluth struggled on the TV pair. I bowl Voss the second game. Voss shoots 266. Thanks for coming. Now you're fourth. I think the next show I got to third, and I forget if I went to the title match at that point or whatever, but I know that the first 2 title matches I bowled, I lost to Walter Ray and I lost to Pete Weber. The Pete Weber obviously 279, 289. So be it. If you look at the score, I lost to 2002, but it could have been a 2003 U.S. Open to Walter Ray. He beat me by 30. However, he had finished the match first and he had already shut me out. If I had struck out, I would have lost by a pin. So I was in the match till the 10th frame. So be it. But I lost the first 2 title matches on tour that I bowled. But then I won the next 5 that I bowled on tour. So I'm 5-2 in a title match on the national tour. And I don't know where it is on the 50 tour. I didn't check it as close. But I have more wins than seconds on the national tour and the PBA 50 tour. Now in regionals is a different story. I've got a few seconds, maybe as many as I'm not sure, as many wins as seconds. I'm not sure, but for the tour level, as I got on the show and got a little more comfortable with it, I got better each time, and something clicked. And I'm not Pete. Most of the time people watch me and I'm fairly boring. I throw the ball, I turn around, I don't say much, but on TV I do entertain a little bit. I get into it, I move, I talk. And I think maybe in a way that kind of was good for me to be that way a little bit, because it helped me relax a little bit more and let some of that energy go. And I also feel like nobody wants to watch you throw a shot and just turn around and sit down. You're on TV, you should be entertaining. And let's be honest, if you're on TV, you had a pretty good look that week, you should be able to hit the pocket and entertain a little bit. So I try to do that, and I got comfortable with it, and I was able to, I was fortunate to be in some great matches. I mean, God, I was in the match against Pete, that was great. The match against Barnes was great. I had a match in 2009 against Simonelli that was pretty good. I was down a little bit and came roaring back, and then he finished me off. But the guys know that if you don't put me away, I'm still can come get you. you know, and that's kind of a cool feeling to have, that they respect you that much and know that, you know, I didn't get there all the time. I mean, you know, God, I didn't do 100 shows like Walter or Pete or Duke, or 80 shows like Mark Baker or whatever. But, you know, I think I had 17 or 18 on tour. And I think if you go with 17, I won 5 out of 17. That's not bad. I'll take
Pretty
that.
damn good percentage. That's what
all.
it is. And that's, I mean, and the percentages still count either way, man. Like, you know, sure, when you get more cracks at it, the chances are you might lose a few more, given that there's only one winner. But I don't know. It was like when you got there, and look, losing to a 266 isn't really it's not like a bad day at the. It sucks that you lose, but like I guess that is a learning experience. Like, wow, these efforts are freaking good. You know, I'm gonna bring it next time.
Especially you lose the Hall of Famers. You know, you lose.
Yeah, right. You're losing the guys that right, exactly.
That's what I was alluding to.
This is something we don't talk about enough, and I'm glad that Michael said it, because Michael said that you need a certain amount of ego to win. And like being a competitive bowler, that's really fucking true. Pardon my language. Just think about the amount of talented bowlers we have seen throughout our lives. Like they throw it better than anybody else. They look beautiful. They seem to have everything in order, but they don't have that. They don't have that ego to propel them forward, where it's almost like their own disbelief in themselves inhibits their ability to eclipse the mountain. And that's what makes the pros in anything so great. Like there's a million guys. I'm sure there's 500,000 guys out there that average 230 in league, that average 240 in league nowadays. Sure. And I'm sure if you gave them their generic house shot against the best in the world, they may go over, they may make it to the top 24. But there's a difference between the people that know how to win, and it's definitely ego-based to some extent, because like Michael said, if you don't have that, if you don't know how to win, it's impossible to teach somebody how to win. The only thing you could ever tell somebody is try and learn from when you don't win. Like if you did bowl for the title and you remember going dead through the face and in 3-6-9-10ing, the next time you go out there, you make sure you don't 3-6-9-10, and then you eventually, but you still have to get to that point. You still have to have enough balls and ego to like trust yourself enough even to get to that point, which I think is kind of underlooked a little bit. And we see a lot of, especially now, we see some people that know how to do it from the second they're out there. The prime example is Anthony Simonson. And then we see players like a Mike Scroggins, who won one title in his first 10 years on tour, and then bada bing, next thing you know, he's got multiple majors, he's in the Hall of Fame, and he spawned late in his career. But those are still two different kinds of people that eventually had ego instilled and was able to capitalize on it. So anybody that does that, like that's the mark of a true professional to me. At least I think it holds a little bit of water.
It does, Johnny. You know, and you hit it on the head. I mean, how many guys throw it great? I mean, there's a lot. I've always said, you know, are the best bowlers on tour? Probably about 90% of the best bowlers in the world are on tour. There's guys that are home for whatever reason. You know, they chose their family, chose a job, chose a security, don't like traveling, whatever their reasons are. But God, so many guys throw it great. But what separates the guys that win from the guys that throw it great? And it's right here. 100%. It's just right here. And it's being able to keep your heart rate under control, keep your breathing under control. And I tell people all the time, and it's so true. And I forget who told me this. Someone told me this a long time ago, but it's the most simplest way to look at it. And if you can apply it, easier said than done. But basically the analogy I use is you go bowl league or you go practice and you get that 10 minutes of warm up or you're just practicing and you freewheel them. You don't keep score. You're throwing the ball, your arms loose, you strike. Light comes on, all of a sudden it's ring 10, 4-pin, ring 10, 4-pin. Well, what's changed? It's the same stuff you were just bowling on a couple seconds ago, right? What's changed is you put a value on the shot. And the value, whether it be striking for league, striking to make a cut, striking to get on the show, striking to win the title on the show, that's where the pressure comes in because you've changed the value of the shot. But in the simplistic form of all of it, when you get on the approach, whether it's the first shot of league or it's to win the Tournament of Champions, the objective is still just to make the best shot you can and knock 10 pins down. Whatever it's for is irrelevant. That's the object of the game. And when I've been able to tap into that, that's when I've been the most successful. Now, the key is tapping into that and holding into that as long as I can. That's the zone we all talk about, right? That's the zone. And for me, that's my zone. When I can keep it that simple and keep it relative to I get on the approach, my objective is to strike. If I don't strike, my objective is to spare. Next frame, reset. I know it sounds stupid and I know it sounds simple, but man, that is the way to go about it. And if you watch anybody through the course of the history of the tour who's bowled for title matches, and Belmo's probably one of the best at it, you'll see him over the ball return, slowing his breathing down, visualizing the shot that he wants to throw to win the tournament. And nobody's done it better than him in recent history. I mean, he's gotten so good at it. And, you know, I know a lot of guys like him. I know a lot of guys hate him. A lot of guys could care or could not care. But what that man has done on the lanes and how he's handled pressure and how he's performed is unbelievable. Oh, it's unbelievable.
You say it sounds simple and stupid. Jesus, if I got to make 2 strikes in a tent to win a freaking league game, I get a little even I'm Dr. Ocho, I get it, but like even I'm like, all right, man, you know, don't yank this one. Don't be an idiot. You know what I mean? Like, and that's so to say that it's stupid and simple is if you could teach it or bottle it, you'd be a trillionaire within a matter of a month.
And that's the whole point of the combo we're having here, because that's what happens to me. If I need a double in league, my heart rate goes up. My heart rate goes up the same way needing a double in league, though, as it does needing to
make a show, probably
to make a 7-pin for 10 grand.
Right.
It's the same way. I haven't figured out how to make it not beat. How to no
matter how minuscule the situation,
not put the value on the shot. Like throw it the way we shoot him in warm-ups, you know, something like that. Not putting the value on it is probably the best sentence I've heard for at least my brain to relate to it. That was a really, really good point there. I'm taking an actual lesson here tonight. So thanks, Mike.
If you can apply it, that's just it.
I'm gonna try. I've tried everything else.
Ocho likes to talk about the big red wiffle bat in relation to leagues and the house shots. It's such an easy oil pattern that, you know, instead of playing with the little thin yellow wiffle ball bat, you have the big red one.
I just think it should be harder. That's all. And I don't because it's not an insult. Well, it kind of is an insult because my average should not be as high as it is. And Johnny's seen me bowl, and it's a very. I'm an in-play guy. I can't hook the lane. I throw it 100 miles an hour.
It's no secret that everybody's average is inflated due to the easiness of the bowling lanes. And then
I don't even know what my bowling balls even do.
By making them absolutely impossible. So I'm almost offended because I feel like it just takes away from what you guys have done. And I know we'll let you answer, but I don't want it's coming off like Ocho says it's a big. I do call it the big red wiffle bat because when I've seen guys have 10 boards of area and they're either tugging it and it stays in the oil and throws a strike, or they woof it out to the 2 and it comes back still full of energy and gets a strike. And I'm like, man, that's not really an indication of how good his athletic ability is, I don't think. But again, it's also league. We're there for a goofy night, and that's all we take it as. And I know I can't because I've bowled on the Nationals, and believe me, what a difference. And I get it, and I wouldn't be able to do it. I know for a fact. And now the light just went out on Ocho.
You look good for a second. Speaking. So the question I have, Michael, is it good for the sport, bad for the sport? Do you think it brings more people, or do you think it kind of inflates people's egos thinking they are as good as the people they see on TV when they may not be?
The answer to that is all of the above. Yeah. I think recreationally,
so loaded. It's so loaded right now.
I mean, recreationally, it's fine. Recreationally, you know, I don't agree with it, but you know what? Guys want to go to league. They work Monday through Friday. They get one night with their buddies. They don't want to be embarrassed and shoot 190, 180. They want to throw strikes. So I get it. I understand that. So recreationally, I'm fine with it. Wall them up, let them strike.
Is 190 bad though? Is 190 bad? Well, like that's what
190 is bad when you're bowling on the recreational house.
Yes, I know, but that's right.
It is, I mean, but hypothetically, you could bowl you could bowl a decent 190 game if you don't strike. Okay. And we realize that, like you said, the yellow bat or the red bat, I get it. Now, as we progress into bowling local tournaments, whether they be 6 gamers or 8 gamers, or on the East Coast, you guys have NEBA. On the West Coast, we have, in Arizona, we have CBE, you know, in California, we used to have PCB. Then you got regionals and you got tour and whatever. As you start to get into professional aspects of the game, I don't think they need to be walled up easy all the time. You know, you'll never hear me argue that someone who can throw it faster with more revolutions shouldn't have an advantage at some point, but they shouldn't have it the whole block.
Right.
Okay. There should be a time where accuracy, and when I say accuracy, I don't mean just hitting a board down a lane. I mean being able to throw at the same speed, with the same launch angles, with the same hit, whether it be 500 revolutions or 200 revolutions, I don't care. But you're repeating
exactly.
That.
Yes.
And you're basically in control of what you want to do. Yeah. And I think there's some weeks where you make them hard and the shot makers rise to the top. And I think there's some weeks where you open them up and you let the power players have their game. I think if you can blend all that in a perfect world, that's great. With today's bowling balls and patterns and rev rates and two-handers and strokers, I don't know how you put a pattern out that subjects to all that and holds up to all that and makes it fair for everybody. You know, it is what it is. You know, in any sport, whether it's golf, baseball, football, tennis, every sport has evolved to bigger, stronger, faster, and bowling is no different. I mean, I haven't looked at the U.S. Open standings today, but I mean, God, the guys that are bowling well, I don't care if your thumb's in it or not, they have rev rate, and they all know how to hit it, you know, and that's the game today. And whether it's right or wrong is irrelevant. I mean, I think if you talk to anybody over 50, they'd like to see shot making come back into play a little bit more. If you talk to anybody who's 20 and 25 and 30, and they're like, wall them up and let them just hit them. Who cares? You know, it's all relevant. You know, the trick is knocking 10 pins down. How do you do it? How do I do it more than you? How do I do it more consistently than you? And, you know, we can go back and play the glory days. The glory days are gone, brother. You know?
Yeah. There's no more hand positioning, and there's no more, only 2 bowling balls. Now, what is it, 10 I think you get to have or something? If I'm wrong, you get to bring 10 bowling balls to an event now. Is that it?
Maybe in the U.S. Open you do. I mean, I think on the national tour you can still bring as many as you can get in the building.
Oh, okay.
While you're throwing them, but the U.S. Open is specific. I think the U.S. Open, the Masters, their USBC run, and I believe they give you an 8-ball arsenal to choose from, which I'm okay with. I think that's that puts it somewhat back on a bowler's ability to be able to manipulate ball speed and manipulate wrist positions and spinning or rolling and the amount of revolutions you want to put on the ball per se. There's a time when you need to grab it for all it's worth. There's a time when you need to be a little softer and easier and learn how to hit those things. You know, I equate it to golf. You don't hit a full swing every shot. Sometimes you hit half shots. Sometimes you try to spin the ball. Sometimes you don't try to spin the ball. There's different things you need to do. I'd like to see bowling get to that point. I don't know that we ever will. It's a different game, and
you get a different bowling ball and you stand in the same spot, and this way you just keep matching up bowling balls with where you're at or something like that. It seems like until you find the equipment. That's
part of it.
I swear I didn't mean to cut you off because that's exactly where you have work, which does indicate your athletic ability too, rather than finding the right sphere that works for where you're standing or something. But that's a little off topic, not off topic. That's out of my realm because that's not even some of the Joker League bowlers that I bowl would still do that too. They bring their 10 suitcases and whatnot and say, oh, the lanes are doing this. And I'm like, you only have 8 boards instead of 10? That must suck. I like to go off on rants a little bit about it because I feel like it is a discredit. That's all. And I know it's supposed to be fun and
but when I'm on Facebook groups, seeing
if you join a league, it should be
fun. But when I look at Facebook groups and then I see how many 300 games are thrown daily, weekly. Unfortunately, I haven't had one, but I also haven't bowled in the last 10 years. Maybe if I got back into the game, I could probably throw it.
Here's a stat that I remember Rick Riley, who wrote for Sports Illustrated, and again he published this stat. I want to say in 2008 or 9. way post the resin era. And he was talking about bowling. And Rick Riley, anybody who knows sports writing, is such a great writer. He's great for theater. He's great for storytelling. He said that in 1981, I think it was 80 or 81, there was 5 million league bowlers, and there was, I think, I get it. I get this part too, because you're talking the old bowling balls and everything. There were 1,200 300 games thrown through the course of leagues, over 5 million bowlers. And then I want to say, I think it was 08 or 09, there was a 2 million bowlers on leagues, and there was 49,000 300s. And I'm sure that's even more now. And they used to measure the lanes. I didn't even know this. They used to shut the lane down if somebody bowled a 300, and they would check the pins and make sure everything was correct and check the lanes to see if there were, I don't know what they would check, honestly. I'm obviously the amateur here to just try and look at it from this angle, but so now with all the 300, now it's just like, geez, they're not even laying courtesy when you throw a 300 anymore, it seems like.
And you want to know the worst part about it? Like what Sperone just wrote, where he says 300s and 800s are a dime a dozen now. And here's the worst part. The pinnacle of awards for a 3-game set is a 900. And when you do that, what's the first thing that everybody wants to say? Jesus, how walled were they?
Yeah, right. How easy was that shot? Yeah, right. You can't even get credit for it.
If you average 267 for 3, it's a dime a dozen. But if you average 300 for 3, they're just dead walled. They've
taken all the accolades out of it, I feel like, for our vantage point. And I got COVID, by the way, so just don't worry about me. Go ahead.
Well, let me touch on that, guys. First of all, someone asked me a question. What was the first bowling ball I had? It was a Black Beauty.
Ooh,
I got it at like age 9, I think, or age 7. I got it, I believe, age 7. My grandfather got it for me, and then I started bowling league at 9. So that was the first bowling ball. I understand why John says what he says, but 300 is still 300. And
still perfection.
I know it's easier to get today than it ever was 30 years ago, 40 years ago. 300 is still 300. You still have to calm the nerves. You still have to get it off your hand. You still have to, and I'll say loosely, make somewhat of a decent shot, because we know we have area when we bowl league. But you throw it a little quick, you can still ring a 10, you can still ring a 7.
True.
So while it's still easier than it's ever been to achieve, if it was meaningless, everyone bowled 300 every game. And we don't. So
that's fair.
And for some guys, like you said, you haven't bowled one. For some guys, that is their first one.
Right.
And if you're the guy that doesn't know it's that guy's first one, and you just slashed it off as, oh, that's 300, that's the greatest feeling for that guy in the world. He just bowled 300. That's all he's wanted to do. And you just pawned it off as, well, the equipment and the pins and the lanes made it easy for you. Sure. It's easier than it ever has been. It's still 300, man.
That's a great answer.
800 is still, that number you had of 49,300 games. I wonder how many 800s were shot that year, because I don't think it would still be that high, even with resin balls.
That's a good point. Probably not. That's a great point. And I almost wish he would have done that too, because that is a really great point.
Do you think it's also dependent on where you are geographically also? Because, like, for instance, when I go to Howell Lanes, it doesn't matter if Parker's on the front 9 or John Severson or Tom Panabianco. Everybody stops on the surrounding pairs still, which is so cool. So, like, when I go to Howell, people still stop, give courtesy, and cheer. So you never really come across the guy who bowled his first 300 problem. Like, people still offer that kind of respect.
Yeah, sometimes you don't notice it. Like, you have to, because it does happen. So
when I was in Vegas bowling league at South Point, I could be on 27 and 8 or 25 and 6, and somebody will bowl 300 on 29 and 30.
And I have no clue?
Had not the foggiest idea. Like, it's way, way different in Vegas.
I didn't even know it was that bad. I'm going from my vantage point at Howell Lane, so that's
right.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, when I came back home, I couldn't believe, I'm like, because I bowled 300 in my Howell League this year, and people stopped and people cheered, and I couldn't believe it. Like, I was so happy about it. Like, oh, people still give a shit about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think it is very situational, and and where you are. I mean, like I live I'm in Sun City right now, and it's not quite the Villages, but it's the Villages. It's the retirement community, and the guys I'm bowling with now are mostly 50 and over, and I still bowl. I'm going to say against the kids. No offense, guys, but they're young, so they're still kids. But I bowl a lot where I get asked to sub in a league, and it's the over 50 crowd, and they still stop, they still cheer, they still respect 300. There are some places I think across the United States, especially some of the smaller towns that don't see it very often. You might see the stop, but it's a shame that because it's become so commonplace to see a 300, 800, that we've lost a respect for really just how good it still is. Right. I bowled league one year back in 1992 when resin balls were first becoming prevalent, and the guy had the front 9, and the front 9 were all pretty good. Maybe he tripped a 4, maybe he slapped a 6 into the 10 off the wall or whatever, but they were all pretty good off his hand. They were in the 1-3, front 9. He gets up in the 10th, the first shot, solid Brooklyn. Gets up in the 11th, he hits the head pin going away and rails the pins out for the front 11. On the 12th shot, he could barely stand up. His knees are shaking so bad. The guy hits the 7 pin going in the gutter for 291.
Come on!
Okay.
Oh.
But my point is, 300 still meant something to this guy. He had never done it. It was his first time in that position. And unfortunately for him, he didn't handle it well. But God, for it to mean that much to him, like, I know it'll never go back to that, but we got to get some of that back. I don't care. People want the pins heavier. People want the balls less volatile. We can say whatever we want. 12 in a row is still 12 in a row. And I clap for anybody who gets 12 in a row. And if I see it, I go over and shake their hand and say, nice game. I don't care if it's their 100th 300 game or their first one. It's still 300, man.
Now I don't feel as bad for having the front 9 and then dumping the 10th in the gutter because I made the spare at least.
Nice job, Ocho.
That was only 2 months ago, by the way. I'm in that realm right now, and I'm qualified for. I know my skin complexion obviously is clear as a bell, but I qualify on the 50 tour now. So heads up. I thought that'd be funnier, man. Shit, that went over.
That is funny.
Let's see you come out with your mask, Ocho, and bowl.
Michael's never seen me recognize me. Are you kidding me?
Oh man, you got to come out in your mask and bowl a tournament. That'd be great.
Shouldn't there be an exemption? Let's have one Ocho exemption.
Well, I honestly on the PBA 50 tour, if you have, I believe if you have the average, you can bowl some of these tournaments as a guest if they have room. So I look forward to the day you come out in your mask and we get to compete against you.
That I would gladly get my ass kicked by you because it would be fun because you're such a gracious guy and like super fun to talk to. So I'm all about that. Yeah, and that's the other thing. My average is 220 right now, which it's not. It shouldn't be. I'm okay. I sent you guys the picture last week.
No, I know. It's a damn dude. You were 217 when we first started the show.
214.
214. Sorry.
It's fine. It doesn't matter. That's not the point. I got these awesome hand-me-down bowling balls, and maybe I'll get one drilled up. Can I do that? Can I get a bowling ball drilled up off the truck? I just want to say that because I hear it said all the time, get a ball drilled off the truck. I just want to say I've done it.
Some drilled on the truck?
Yes, just so I can say it. And I'll tell everybody. I'll be like, I'm just getting one drilled off the truck. It might be a spare ball for all I know. I don't even know.
The first ball I ever had drilled off the truck was from the late, great Dave Ohm.
Oh, yeah.
Still drilling on the truck. Yeah. I remember
Dave Ohm.
Attitude 3.
Yeah.
That's the ball that Mike Floor gave me from the bartender at the bowling alley. Are you kidding me?
Oh, Jesus. I had a ball drilled off the truck, but it was given to me. It was Ricky Ward's. I got it for work. I got it for work. In the truck. I grew up in outside of Hartford at Bradley Bowl was my home house in Windsor Locks. So
Litchy.
The tour came there one year, and I helped unload the truck, and they gave me a Tito Rhino Pro, which I still have and use today, and it was Ricky Ward's ball, and I love it.
There you go. Hey, Johnny, I got a question for you, and
yes, sir.
I'm sure you get asked this quite a bit, but maybe you don't. Obviously, you're a bowling fan, and you've bowled your whole life, and went with the thumb in, the thumb out, and the whole thing. You're not afraid to change and experiment and do certain things. But you have a different perspective of the game because of who your father was. and you've been entitled and enlightened to certain situations that a lot of kids and people will never get to see. And you've had 102 people on your show now. How was it growing up for you with your dad? And your dad's great. You know, I mean, he's not only a great bowler, but you know, he's a great person. God, he's a great storyteller, and he loves to tell stories. But you got to experience that firsthand, and a lot of us don't. And I don't know if anyone's ever asked you that question on your show, but I'd be curious what that was like, because you know, you see Tiger and Charlie in the golf world, and now you're seeing Chris Barnes and Ryan Barnes go through this. And so I'm curious what it was like for you growing up, you know, with your father around like that.
I'd say 85% of it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. First off, I love bowling. I mean, I fell, and I didn't love bowling from the time I was a kid. I went bowling when I was a kid, but I fell in love with bowling. I remember this day like it was yesterday, because it was March 4th, 1994, day after my dad's birthday. And at that time, obviously no cell phones, and we heard the phone ringing in the kitchen. And my mom picks up, because my dad would always call at the end of a night block or at the end of the block. And I just hear my mother from the kitchen scream, "You're fifth? You're fifth? Oh my God, how did you get to fifth?" And at that time,
well, you do a better accent than that. Come on. That was there you go.
How did you get to anyway? Yeah, you're fifth, you're fifth, you're fifth. Is that better?
That's better.
She comes back into the living room and she says, you know, Dad made the TV show. And that was the national championship show that he bowled 300 live on ABC. So that's when I fell in love with bowling. So obviously I fell in love at the right time for me. I was 10 years old at that point. So now I'm like going to Erie during Easter vacation instead of going to Disney World with my mom and my sister. I'm going to Erie to watch Dad bowl. I'm in the paddock with all you guys. I have access to all the bowling balls. I have newspaper crews wanting to talk to me and showcase me on ESPN and local TV networks just for being in places. I got to play video games with movie stars. I got to meet some of my childhood like girl crushes from Hollywood because of Dad. The thing that sucked for me, the other 15%, was I was one of those teenage phenoms. I was one of those insanely smooth, awesome, sensational players when I was a kid. And I'm always been fully transparent, and I have no problem saying this. I never got over the ego hump. I was always nervous in every aspect of my life once I matured enough. Once I got to a certain age, everybody's always looking at me. That's Petraglia's kid. Oh my God, he didn't strike. He sucks. Oh my God, his pants are too tight. Oh my God, his fucking waist is too wide. Oh my, whatever the hell. Oh, he was born with a silver spoon. He's this and that. So I could never just go and bowl a tournament the way somebody else bowls a tournament. I can't even fucking patch my finger and light it on fire without somebody saying, "Johnny's lighting his fan on fire." You can't just let it dry normally like a normal person. That asshole. You gotta be such a prick. Like every time I was under a microscope my whole life. So, and it's probably one of the reasons why I just decided in my earlier years, especially, to resort to alcohol, because it was the only way to get my ego enough to shut that shit out. But would I trade it for anything in the world? Absolutely not. I think that unless you've experienced what it's like to be related to a legend in anything, it's a different world. It's a lot of keeping your mouth shut when you don't want to. It's a lot of saying the right thing to the wrong person. It's a lot of putting your tail between your legs when you know somebody's a son of a bitch, you know. But the people that I've met and the things that I've been able to do because of my dad's commitment to this one thing for 60 something years, that's the coolest thing in the world I could ever have. So I wouldn't trade it for anything, but I just wish I could be like, I just wish I could drink a beer like a normal person drinks a beer. You know?
Yeah. Thanks for sharing, Johnny. I appreciate that.
Of course.
I'm glad Johnny was the son of a living.
He's discussed that before. What he said was like, he's like, you know, I have so much to thank for this sport. And, like every relationship, everything, even this podcast we're doing. I met Johnny at the bowling alley, but we were, talking movie quotes and just goofing off. We weren't even talking bowling. I never talked bowling with his dad.
Ocho had no idea who he was. He literally had no idea that he
You don't have to talk about that.
No, I love it because it's a great story. It's a great story. You had no idea who he was.
And it's on now plug it, Rob, on one of our older things, a Straight Up 5. It's on YouTube. Catch the story about how Ocho had no clue who Johnny Petraglia Sr. was and how he found out and how it's all right. Everything's all right. Everything happens for a reason. I like to go to the bowling alley, and I met some people there.
We did a watch along with Johnny's dad of his 300 game that he shot on ABC, which was a fun episode. It is on our YouTube channel, Straight Up 5. But during that podcast, he did explain the story of how Johnny met Ocho, and Ocho was just a house hack, had no idea who the GOAT was, and was just shooting the shit. And Johnny's dad actually appreciated Ocho because he's like, you're the first guy that, sits with me in the bar and doesn't fucking asking me stupid bowling questions. I don't want to talk about bowling. I'm so sick of talking about bowling, It's just like, you just shoot the shit with me and we have a good time. And
it was a later league. It was like, by the time we'd end, it's 11 o'clock and, and he'd be like, he's like, I get it. I'm at the bowling alley, but it's 11 o'clock. Can't we just chill out and let me have a glass of wine and I was like, yeah. And then he was like, he's appreciative of the fact that I'll usually goof on somebody who would start to bug him. And I'm like, God, what's wrong with you people? You have nothing else to do?
And he would goof on Johnny Sr. and people would be like, the whole room would stop.
Well, that's how it started too.
Did he just say that to Johnny Petraglia Sr.? Like, who the fuck is this guy?
And real quick, the most amazing thing about this isn't a detraction of what we're saying to you, is how his mindset during the game that he bowled to 300, and he basically played the game backwards. How I've heard Jack Nicklaus will play a golf course backwards, how Tiger Woods plays a golf course backwards. And he said, this is crazy. And you probably know this because you're a champion. You're a winner. He said that I saw the way his ball was rolling and I knew he's going to get tapped at least once or twice.
Knew he was going to ring.
So I in my head. So yeah, he's like, I get 268 or 278 in my head, and then it happened in the third frame. And he's like, well, there I go, and there's now I'm down to 260, and I'm like, this is crazy, just that mindset. Because I don't know the way I think. Then how you said like when you're in practice and you're freewheeling it, like there's no. But then when you're like, all right, 278's the number, it kind of would make you squeeze it a little tighter. But you're wired different. You control the breathing, and especially if it's popping off your hand good and you have a good look, you're like, okay, 268 sounds easy. But just that on league, I can't say I'm going to do that. That's what's so damn amazing about. I'm sure you probably have that mindset too. And it was a wild story that we had on Straight Up 5 that I don't think anybody had ever really realized.
And you know what's funny? I'll just say I don't think that way. And I'm grateful that I don't think that way, because I would never, ever be sitting on a bench trying to calibrate and calculate 10 things that my opponent's going to do. My opponent's going to do whatever
he's going to do. That's what's amazing about it.
No fucking shit to worry about, with all due respect. I got to worry about if Walter's going to miss a baby split or ring a 10 because this lane is slightly drier than this. Like, with all due respect, that's too much. That's the part of my brain that I want to shut the fuck off, because the rest of me works. That's the part that I have of dad, and I do. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. And yeah, it's like the hardest thing in the world for me to unteach it. It's like, shit, we talk about alcohol all the time. It's like an alcoholic's biggest battle is drink number one. That's it. Actually, it's after you've had drink number one. It's usually okay if you don't have one, but once you've had one, then it's over, right? That's my constant battle in the brain, is I don't think that way. So I find it interesting that, I mean, it worked for dad, but let's stop talking about dad. We're here for Haugen. Like,
that's what I just wanted to. I figured that perspective would maybe resonate.
Your dad's a great guy,
Well, let's
he's in the next room. I can go grab him and talk to him.
But in respect to that, there are times where, like, I'll be in a match and I'll be like, well, it's going to take 250 to win this match, or it's going to take 230 to win this match.
You have a number in your head, like a cut line.
I mean, you do, right? You have a game plan going in, right? Because we know when lanes are scoreable and we know when they're not. So you kind of know what you're going to get. But then obviously as the game is going, you have to readjust, and you have to make certain adjustments, or or certain things depending on what your opponent's doing or what you have on the lane at that time. And like, for example, when I bowled in 2001 against Pete, I mean, we were striking. I bowled 250 something the semifinal match, not the semifinal match, but the match against Schaefer. And I think Pete bowled 260 against Duke in the match before we bowled each other for the title. And then 289, 279. So you knew you were going to have to strike. Like, you just knew. I don't want to say that I knew I needed 250, but you didn't feel like you wanted to miss, because if you missed, you felt like you might have lost. And then when I bowled Barnes, I didn't approach that match as I need a number to get there. Like, I didn't have a number in mind. And certainly after 6 frames, whatever number I would have had in mind was thrown out the window. I was in survival mode at that point, and I had to change gears and was basically forced into the moves I made. I will say, when I won the 2017 PBA 50 U.S. Open, lanes were tough that week. And when we broke them down in practice, you could see that they were going to get ugly. And I knew that going in, and I didn't try to shoot 230 that game. I tried to hit the pocket and make my spares. And I think I won that match. I bowled LeClaire, and I think I won 170 to 160 or 170 to 160. They were ugly, but we knew that going in. So your mindset's always different. But there are definitely times where you do have a score, and you're like, okay, I need 250 to win this match, or I need 230 to win this match, and you do start looking at it backwards. You're like, I've got 10 frames. I've missed once. Okay, now I can only miss 1 or 2 more times. And you do think that way. Now, if your opponent is doing what they're supposed to do, then unfortunately that theory came true. But when your opponent starts giving you breaks, then you start adjusting your mindset and how you go about it. But there are definitely times you have a number, and you better shoot that number or you're done.
We should have asked a few more people about this too, because that is a great point. Go ahead.
Coach, hang on. So sorry.
No, you're good. You're good.
Because I have a question about this too, because I like my mindset, I understand all that. So here's my question for you. Like, we all know in the sport of bowling, a clean game with 2 doubles is 2-team, right? You make all your spares and you double twice, you're going to bowl 215. So like, when I go out to USBC Nationals, I go out there basically with that opening mentality. My goal is to double twice and stay clean, because if I shoot 650, I'm going to help my team. If I'm inside action, I'm going to make a couple dollars. And I'm not going to crush myself for all events. On the flip side, if I go to a tournament that I'm looking around and 24th place is averaging 240, like the tournament that I told Steph that she should have bowled, and she said, I don't want to bowl, they're going to average 240. And then, of course, they averaged 240. So I felt like a fucking asshole. And then you go there and you have that. It's like, okay, so now I know, yes, I could probably shoot 215 and throw 2 doubles here with this ball. But at what point do you have to flip the script and say, look, I got to get out of the safe zone, because I'm not going to make TV or a check bowling 215 this week. And on the contrary, what do you do when the scoring pace of the tournament is like it was at the Monmouth County Masters this past week, where the field average was 168 with 140 bowlers? And I go 2-team, 230, 230, 170, 170 to go plus 20. Like, that mentality is, man, I don't want to shoot any more 170s, but I also out average the field by 35 pins a game. When do you stay safe? Is it all relative to the score? Is it all relative to the pace? Is it relative to what you're feeling in any specific moment?
Again, that's situational. So if you're bowling in a tournament where pins carry over, maybe you stay a little more aggressive than you normally would and keep trying to find it. If pins don't carry over and it's you're going to be put in brackets and you're going to bowl someone head to head, win or move on, maybe you do play safe a little bit. Maybe you realize the scoring pace is slowed down, like in your case where you were, say, 50 over, 60 over after 3, and then all of a sudden you lose your reaction and you're like, oh my God, I can't shoot 160, 160. I'm not going to make the cut. You find a way to shoot 180, 190. So maybe you do gear it down a little bit. But I think it's all relative to the scoring pace. And I think we realize after a game or two kind of where the scoring pace is going to go, and what we need to do. And I think the great players, adjust off of that. They know when it's okay to give me a ball that's going to control the pocket and shoot 190 or 2-0. And they also know when, hey man, I need 250, and I might big four, but I know that if I get to the pocket, I'm going to strike with this ball. And part of that's experience.
I mean,
it's just it's experience, and it's experience in just knowing yourself and knowing the scoring pace. And if I told that to a guy bowling his first tournament, he wouldn't understand it. If I told a guy bowling his 100th tournament, he'd go, okay, I understand.
Right.
But to me, it's always relative to what the scoring pace is, and then obviously what you're bowling on. I mean, when you're bowling on a league shot, you're probably trying to shoot 240 every game. I don't care, even if the pace is less, you're probably still trying to shoot 240. But when you're bowling on something that's 1-to-1, and it's late in the day and it's just trashed, you might say, you know what, 180 is a good game right now. And let me get the ball in my hand that gives me the best chance to hit the pocket and make the spare, whatever my spare is. I'll take 8 flat 10s a game if I know I can make them.
Well, looking at the U.S. Open, which I threw some scores earlier of after. What is that noise?
Flood of memories of my childhood.
Not on my end.
I don't know where that
came
from.
That is very weird.
What was that?
I have no idea what that was.
That was great.
What was it? I missed it. I just moved.
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't have the TV on.
We
We got Simo averaging 217, which
my daughter's outside probably. She's 18 months old, so I think I forgot her. My bad.
217 is leading the U.S. Open right now. I've seen Ryan Schaefer was on Facebook today saying, it's like they're putting up trees in the middle of the lane. You just got to kind of loft it around them. It's like, how can you shoot on some of these patterns? They vary so much. But the cream always does rise to the top, like we talked about earlier. When it comes to something like the U.S. Open, and I don't know if the PBA 50 U.S. Open was the same with changing patterns that much, but when you're bowling on something that okay, first game is going to be flat pattern, second game is going to be, cheetah or, whatever else, or going to throw something that's super, oils all over the middle of the lane. You gotta loft it and get it out there past the arrows. What do you do in a situation like that?
Well, the closest thing I can tell you personally that I've experienced to, and I'm assuming what you're saying is every pair you go to is a different pattern.
Every pair and every round in the U.S. Open.
So every round is different than every pair. So, again, they're bowling on 4 different patterns or 3 different patterns for qualifying, right? Yep. And I think that I would assume, they have ball reps, they have conversations, they have game plans. Some of these patterns people are going to look at and say, I need to bowl really well on this pattern. I need to get 220 or 230, average out of that block. And then they may look at another pattern and go, God, if I can get through this at 200, just bowl even this block, I'd be thrilled. So again, it's relative to what you're bowling on, to what your strengths are. And I mean, honestly, something as simple as to how you feel when you get out of bed that day, because we don't always feel great every day we wake up. And you don't always, just because I want to throw the ball up 5 and catch it the way I'm going to catch it and see it go through the pins, maybe I wake up and up 5 is really up 7 or up 4 or up 3. Right. And I'm not scoring as good as I want to be, because I'm just not physically throwing it as good as I have on good days. And every sport we have it. We have good days. We have bad days. We can stay in the zone longer. So again, these things are all relevant. So, I think it's like, for example, Anthony Simonson is bowling. Well, what he's bowling well on, I wouldn't probably bowl well on, and vice versa. Maybe what I would bowl well on, he might not bowl well on. So I would know that when I got my niche, when I got what I like to do, I better beat it up, and I better maintain the other 2 blocks. Or, if the one block was kind of medium for everybody, you better make sure you get medium or a little more than medium. And then the last block, it's not good for you. You better find a way not to lose pins. And I'm sure that even though he's leading the tournament, he's probably approached it in some way, shape, or form like that, because there's no way he's going to tell you. I'd be shocked if he said, I think I can average 220 on all 3 patterns. He knows there's one pattern that's going to be better than another pattern for him, and he's going to beat that pattern up, and he's going to survive the other pattern. And that's how you do it, And if you look at all the other sports, it's the same way. Teams that can't defend the run do the best to make sure that they that they get the other team passing, you know, and you try to get them out of what they like to do. And the good teams can make you do that. And the good bowlers do that. The good bowlers bowl 230 on the stuff they like, and they bowl 200 on the stuff they don't like. They don't shoot the 160s to 170s. Now, I get it. It's the U.S. Open, and it's a long format. Almost everybody's scorecard I've seen has that 150, 160 game in it. And God, when I bowled it, I had plenty of them as well. But trust me when I tell you, we were all trying to avoid that 160 game. We were trying to keep that 160 game to be 190 or 200. That was our game plan. It doesn't always work that way. And it's like, in theory, you can always, going back to the simple thing, I get on the approach, I'm going to strike. If I don't strike, I'm going to spare. Sounds simple. It's easy to say, hard to do.
Right.
These game plans these guys are having, in their mind, it's really simple. And it's easy to say, well, I want to go out and average 230 on the good pattern. I want to average 200 on my hard pattern, and I want to be somewhere in the middle on the middle pattern. Making that happen, extremely much more difficult than saying I want it to happen. It's sometimes
not a game plan. Every time someone has a game plan, it's great until they get punched in the face, and you get punched in the face by some of them patterns sometimes, and you're like,
That's
well,
right.
that ball did nothing what I thought it was going to do, and I'm just trying to stay in play. So game plans are great
Exactly.
until you get punched in the face. It's all relative. I mean, that's literally getting punched in the face when you leave a washout or whatever, when you think you've nutted it or something. And so, and that's what these patterns, I guess, are designed to do for the best of the best too. I don't want to say it like that, but like,
it's true, because
it's to test their mental metal too.
Yeah. We have the best of the best up there right now. We got Simo, we got Sanders, you got Andrew Anderson, you got Belmo went from 37th to 7th. Rash is in the top 10. Troop
I
is
can
12.
imagine how mentally drained you are. I know it's already physical, but like just the grind of that, where every shot you have to concentrate so hard. And I know you try to repeat, but like, I could just go collapse after. Do you have anything about that?
I got a great answer for you there. So for many years, when the senior tour or the 50 tour is not quite as bad, because we do get some days off here and there. But the national tour used to be, 1 week in a city, pack up, drive, go to the next city, 1 week in a city. And when I was done bowling for the week, whether it was the last game of qualifying or it was the last game of match play, or it was the show was a little different because you pretty much had to get out of the hotel and go. But like, we used to finish qualifying on Thursdays and sometimes Fridays. And I kid you not, whenever that last shot was thrown, I would go get food. I'd go to the hotel and I'd go to sleep, and man, I would sleep. Like I could sleep 11, 12 hours. Just I'm exhausted.
You're spent.
And it wasn't so much physically, because like if you said, hey, Mike, I want you to go bowl 100 games this week. No problem. Let's go bowl 100 games. I can do it. I'm 57 now. I might have a few aches and pains, but I could bowl 100 games in a week. No problem. But if you ask me to go bowl 24 games where it's going to be 12 games of qualifying and 12 games of match play with the potential top 5 step ladder, whenever that tournament is done for me, whether it's 12 games or 24 games or 25 or 20, 28 games, when I'm done, there's not an ounce of my body and mind that isn't tired, because
that means you left it all out there too, man. You
Absolutely.
left everything out there. That's
Absolutely.
the beauty. And that means you have you. I mean, it's hard to have a regret like that. Like, oh, I should have. Blah blah blah. I mean, clearly you left everything out there. And again, man, I could just picture, like, if there was a behind the scenes or something like that, or like, dropping the duffel bag and like just the face plant to the bed or something. That'd be like the true bowler's mind after a long format week, just to make a meme out of it or something like that.
Well, I mean, look, if you ever watch with Bowl TV and other live streaming things that you have, and you are access to watching qualifying or watching match play, and then even on the show, just look at how much KT tape you see on people's wrists and arms and stuff. And, you'd think, well, God, they're just rolling this little ball down the lane, and it shouldn't be that hard. Well,
they're doing such an asymmetrical thing, man. I'm just saying to Jason Belmonte, like, if you threw 2 bowling balls at once, you're symmetrical. You probably won't hurt yourself. However, you can only throw 1 rock, and you're using your asymmetrical muscles. You're stressing the joints that don't really want to be stressed. At least you're throwing underhand. That's the good thing. So the shoulders are okay.
But
I'm glad
what
you
I'm
mentioned that,
saying is
Michael.
you just see athletes, and I say athletes because bowlers are athletes, even though people think they're not. You're still an athlete. And you watch these bowlers bowling, and this is a good week because you've got 18, 24 games, whatever, qualifying, and you got some match play. So you're going to get into 30, 40, maybe 50 games of bowling this week at a competitive level. And all these guys that make it that far are going to be hurting in one way, shape, or form. And you won't watch many of them bowling without KT tape. They just, it's just the way that it is. It's, I mean, imagine a football player. He plays 1 week of football after practice all week. What do? They go in the ice bath. They get massaged. They get taped up. They're bumped. They're bruised. Baseball players, the same thing. Even though it doesn't look it, they're sore after playing a 9-inning baseball game. Every sport.
Matter of fact, baseball is probably pretty close to bowling because it's an everyday grind, and bowling is the everyday grind with, how many games, the 8 games per day, and then what is it? Sometimes 40 games for a tournament over the course of 4 or 5 days, the pro-am, and it's similar in that respect where it's just such a grind and a mental angst.
Yep, and it wears you out. I mean, physically it can take its toll on you, but mentally it wears you out. And like Johnny said, sometimes he can't separate between having a shot mean something and having it not mean something, and feeling the pressure of doubling to help his team win the league game, or the double attempt to win a national title. There's pressure, whether we self-impose it or someone else has imposed it and we've chose to take it on or whatever. But when you start mentally trying to battle that and keep yourself calm and do all that, even when you're bowling good, even when you bowl a 350 over block, they may go, God, that looked easy. It was fun. It wasn't easy. I mean, sure, it wasn't like it was the most difficult thing in the world because your ball read the lane right and you were carrying well and whatever, but to stay on top of all your moves, to stay in that moment, to stay focused for every shot, it wears you out. Now, it wears you out more when you're 200 under than when you're 200 over, but you're still tired, man. You're still tired. And it is exhausting. It's not just the bowling of the games, it's the mental aspect of it, that it's just, you're asking someone to be intense and to be focused and to care and to give a shit and to make a shot and have something on the line for it. And it wears you out. I mean, it really does. That's why I would just literally sleep the whole next day when I was done. And literally, like, people would be calling me, hey, are you okay? And I'm like, man, I was sleeping.
No, that's such good insight, because and we don't ask that enough too. And I'm sure it's probably pretty relative that, the aches and pains, the muscles are sore and everything, but man, that mental angst, that grind where every shot is so damn important, where like you walk out and like you're so on empty, like there's no reserve left. You're lucky you got back to the hotel, and just the face plant. I'm picturing the Nestea plunge right onto the bed.
Oh yeah, there's been a few nights where you lay down in the bed, you don't even take your clothes off, you just sleep in your clothes, you're done.
You're in the same position 8 hours later, like, oh, you get.
Yeah, I mean, I've like, we used to have these tournaments where you would bowl 2 days of qualifying, and then the next day you'd wake up and you'd have a match, 3 of 5 or whatever, and you'd bowl that match early, like 9 or 10 in the morning. And so it's Friday afternoon, it's about noon, you've lost that match, you're done for the week. You have a pro-am on Saturday, the show's on Sunday, but you're just doing the pro-am because you didn't make the show because you just lost. And it's 12 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and you lay down, then you wake up and you don't know if it's 6 in the morning or 6 at night.
What day is it? Like, I gotta check the sun.
Is it still Friday or is it Saturday? I don't know, man. It's just, you're wiped, man. It's
and that's before these iPhones, some of these tournaments that he's had. So remember that, people.
True.
Like, he's going with legit alarm clocks and that little dot that says PM or AM or something on them.
It's the real deal, man.
Clocks.
Dude, I still think about my dad using his fucking road atlas to like figure out where bowling alleys are.
Oh, I used to have to do that too, man.
Oh, yeah, he don't fly anywhere. That's
no iPhones.
Oh, we would literally pull over on the side of the road. You'd be on the road, you'd pull over on the side of the road, and you'd be caravanning with a few guys, a couple cars, groups following you, and we'd be pulling over the side of the road saying, well, is it better to go this way or is it better to go this way? And we'd have to figure it out,
Actually go to the police station.
He still tries to shove an atlas in my back seat.
Yeah, go to the post office. You always go to the post office.
That's the
Actually,
one
what he always says, which makes sense, is, hey, it'll never run out of a battery.
That's true. That's true.
The Rand McNally Road Atlas. That's the shit.
I know people that would go to post office or police station and just ask for directions, because that's what you did, back in the day. If you didn't have a map before MapQuest and all that too, or you'd have the AAA.
Even MapQuest is old now. That's just it.
That's sad. That's really
So
that's
I got to tell you guys a funny Robert Smith, Michael Haugen story. We were in Wichita one year, and we were in Wichita, and the next tournament was in Denver, a suburb of Denver. And I forget what day it was, but we had talked about following each other out. And for some reason, we didn't quite.
Give us a year. Give us a kind of a year.
Oh, man, I'm going to say
2000?
This is 02
I don't
or
remember.
1-ish. Or...
It's probably, we'll say like 2004 to 2007, somewhere in that area.
All right.
But long story short, Robert and I had said we were going to follow each other out, and we didn't communicate that night or that morning, but we both get up to go, and we don't talk to each other, and we end up in the fast food line at, I believe, at McDonald's behind each other, and I'm honking at him or whatever, and so we decide, okay, now we're here, we're going to follow each other out. So off we go.
There's some dumb luck already, right there.
Right. So off we go. He's in his car and I'm in my car. Now, as you know, driving across I-70 in the wintertime, it can snow.
Yep.
And it was a Sunday or a Monday night. I forget exactly what night it was. The only thing that I can remember is the Raiders were playing the Broncos in Denver because my grandmother was watching the football game on TV. Well, Robert and I are driving, and it's starting to get bad. And we're in like Russell, Kansas. And it's like, I don't know, it's got to be like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And I'm like, Robert, man, we should probably stop, just get a hotel and knock it out tomorrow. And he's like, bro, it's like 3 o'clock. Even if we just do like 20, 30 miles an hour, we'll still get there tonight. We'll be there tonight. Let's just do it. So, okay, we go, and off we go. And as we get closer into Denver, it is just coming down. And Johnny, you guys all drive in the snow, and West Coast people don't deal with this very often. But what I love about driving in the snow is people respect that you're driving in the snow. So there's no longer 3 lanes. There's no longer lines. It's you put a blinker on, people slow down so you can get over.
Yep. It's basically
they respect the fact that you want to get over.
Cars with a lot of room.
Last thing they want to do is you cutting them off, right? So they respect this. So we're driving, and it's coming down, and it's the first time I've driven in snow before, but it's the first time I'm really driving in it like this. And to be honest with you, I didn't want to drive in it, but I also wanted to get there, so be it. Drove slow, put blinkers on, respected the whole thing.
Front wheel drive
but I can
car,
always,
do you remember?
We'll see, what kind of car was that?
Because front wheel drive, you're a lot better off than rear wheel.
It was either a Mazda Protege or maybe a Nissan Sentra or something.
Okay, all right. You
or
probably
maybe a
had some
Dodge
that was
Neon.
okay.
I don't know, something like that. But it wasn't
right.
it wasn't 4-wheel drive by any means.
Right.
And I just remember, like Robert just being so determined to get there. So we're going. And then I remember calling my grandmother, and she's like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "Are you watching the football game now?" She goes, "Yes." And I'm driving by the stadium right now. And she's going, "What on God's earth are you doing driving in that weather? Get off the road." And blah, So it's just when Robert was on the show a couple of weeks ago, it made me think of that. And if I would have had a microphone, I would have told him that story, and we would have been laughing. But yeah,
did you make it? I assume
we did make it. We made it in plenty of time. But it was the last half of that drive was very slow.
That's a grind too. That's a mental grind. That's just like bowling on the U.S. Open. Like you're exhausted by the time you're done with that.
It's the stuff people don't think about.
Right.
Tour life. People think that tour life is all glamorous, and you just get and you bowl, and the cameras
are on TV,
you,
and that's it.
And you're on TV, and you're winning, and life is great. But like I tell people, what happens when you get sick? You got a cold, and you got to go to the doctor and get medicine, and then you've got to do laundry, and then you've got to drive. And I mean, it's not all like it's cracked up to be. Now, like Johnny said about growing up with John as his dad, most of it was great. There was a part of it that was kind of hard. You wouldn't trade it, and I wouldn't trade any of it. But it's not all a bed of roses. Life on tour can be hard. Life on tour can really kick you in the ass. It can really make you think, am I doing the right thing? Should I be doing something else? And this is not the pity party and the woe is me, because look, I chose this and this is the path I went down, and I'm happy I did. And like you, Johnny, I wouldn't trade it either. Bowling's been good to me and I'm fortunate, but it's not always great. It's hard. It's hard work. And life in general is hard at times, but now you're on the road and you're by yourself and you're dealing with things that maybe someone else would help you out with when you're home, and it's all you, and it's tough. It's
what
not
did
just
Belmo
throwing a
say
bowling
last
ball.
week? Belmo said something last week that resonated. So he said, there's the major sports, the golf, football, baseball, basketball, but even hockey, golf, with the financial means that are there, those guys do it because they're great athletes. And he said, we bowl because we love it. Like there's a passion for it. And he was kind of saying the same thing about how the glitz and glamour isn't so great. It's because we love it so much. Even the rewards that we get are so worth it, knowing full well that, and it should be, look, we all agree that you guys should be paid more for your winnings and you're the best at what you do for something. But he said, we bowl because we absolutely love it and we have a passion for it. And I said, man, what a great line, because it makes so much sense.
Is that how you felt, Michael?
Oh, well, 100%. I mean, in the heyday of my career, I bowled when prize funds were $15,000 for first place.
Yeah.
Back when the ABC or USBC was actually thinking about buying the PBA, because if you remember back in the day, the PBA was a nonprofit organization, and before Chris Peters and I think it was Rob Glazier and I want to say Paul Allen, but it could have been somebody else.
I don't remember
forgive
the
me
name.
if I'm wrong then. But I know for a fact Rob Glazier and Chris Peters were involved in it, and they bought the PBA and turned it into a business as opposed to a nonprofit organization. But before that happened, we were bowling tournaments for $15,000 on top. Now, it doesn't take much to figure out that I'm not doing this to get rich. I'm
Right.
doing this because, for a lot of reasons. I mean, I love to bowl. I love to compete. I didn't want to work
good at it.
I didn't want to work a 9 to 5. I didn't want to work a 9 to 5 job. I wanted, and the bottom line is I didn't want to wake up at 50 or 55 and say, I wonder if I was good enough to compete against these guys.
Right.
And I took a chance. And, financially, maybe it wasn't the best decision in the world. Emotionally, man, what a ride. I am so grateful that I took that chance and competed against the best players in the world. And
you'll
tested
never
my
lose
mettle.
those moments. You'll
No,
never lose those moments, man. That's just it.
I've
Like
spent
that's
all the
something you
money.
can't trade in.
Yeah, I've spent all the money, but you know what? Here, check this out. There's my Tournament of Champions trophy right there.
Right.
That's my
Next to a
Tournament of Champions
ginseng
trophy.
teacup. There you go.
So-
Oh yeah.
so,
dude.
like,
I mean, that's
Still haven't even enshrined it
invaluable.
in the
That's
case.
never going away.
That's
And-
invaluable, and
It
no
is.
one
Look
can
in the-
take that from you, man. Like
you look in the
and
history book, and it'll always say my name there as the champion. And
That's
you know,
goosebump shit right there.
you
Man.
touched on it earlier, Dr. Ocho. For that week, I was the best player in the world that week.
Damn
and irregardless if you got a good break, you got a bad break, someone, whatever, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, they put that trophy in my hand. And I can say that for the players who showed up that week, and like I said, 90% of those are the best players in the world. I was the best player in the world 5 times on tour. And
That's so bad.
I don't use the F word pretty much, but that's pretty fucking cool.
Damn right.
I mean, it really is.
That's our goal every week, by the way. That's our goal every week to sneak one in there from somebody.
And to me, that's what it's all about. I mean, I've spent that money that I won in the TFC. It's gone. Couldn't tell you where it went. Probably the
Right.
golf clubs and some other stupid stuff. But the memory in that trophy, that's with me every day. And
It's the hair on the back of my
irregardless-
neck. I'm telling you, that stands.
Well,
That's,
I mean,
that's
it's-
what's so good. You can't.
it's what
you
we all
can't-
live
You can't
for.
fake that.
No, it's what we all live for. I mean, it's like Johnny said, and you said it, having a shot to step up, to throw a shot for the week to win a title, or to throw 2 in the 10th, to force your opponent to throw 2 in the 10th, to step up and perform when you need to perform and to get it done, or sometimes to not get it done. That's part of the deal. You know, we don't always win. It's the way it goes. But yeah, like at the end of the day, it'd be great to make more money. Sure. If I was a golfer and had the same career in golf I had in bowling, I could sit here and tell you that I'm sitting in my robe on my yacht, eating whatever I
Smoking a
want to eat,
pipe
whatever,
and eating grapes.
and life would be great. And you know what? Sure, it would be financially better, but the thrill of the victory is still the same. You know,
so awesome.
You know, Tiger's felt it 82 times and 15 times. I've felt it 8 times and 2 times, but it's the same feeling.
It's all the same.
You know,
man.
it's the same feeling. I'm the best. I'm the best this week. You're the best this week, and that's what it's about. That's what we live for, and we're not doing it for the money. I mean, because there's no money there. I mean, it's better now for some of the kids. It's better now than it was, but it's still not great. I mean, I don't know how many guys. If you look at last year's tour list and you go down the money list, how many guys made 80 grand last year? And really with inflation and everything else, after I pay my expenses, if I'm not making at least 80 grand, I'm really not making a living. You know, all those guys.
Your overhead itself is going to be a shit ton.
I mean,
man.
These guys have wives that work that supplement them and help them out. They have pro shots at home. They have other things they're doing besides bowling. But very few people are just throwing a bowling ball and making a living. And that's the sad reality of our sport. But we still get plenty of people to show up and chase this dream because we love to bowl. We love to compete. And that's why we do what we do. I mean, that's why at 57, I'm still bowling the PBA 50 Tour. I still love to compete against the guys at the level that I'm competing against.
You're not going to turn that switch off anytime soon. I mean, it's hard to, honestly. Like, I feel like it's hard. Once someone has that switch, I don't know how you turn it off.
Yeah, I mean, the person to ask would be Duke. You know, Duke's walked away from the game and supposedly doesn't compete at all anymore. And I mean, I guess after doing it for 40, 50 years, God, your dad, Johnny, probably a great guy to ask.
Dude, he still goes to the bowling alley 2 hours early when he's subbing on somebody's team.
Right.
And he gets pissed that he's not bowling 220 every game. I'm like, Dad, you're 80. It's okay.
Right.
But it's all the mind. The mind will always be that competitor that they are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's for no other reason than love. I mean, it really is. I mean,
exactly
there's probably
some
said. Ego in it too. You know, you want to be the best.
Oh,
you know,
totally.
but you can be, like I said, you can have the ego without being
that goes with everything. Yeah.
Without being mean and nasty about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can just want to be there's nothing wrong with wanting to be the best. There's nothing wrong with going to a tournament and saying, I want to beat everybody. And then you do it. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
It just doesn't unfortunately happen all the time. But
are we all bowl to begin with?
Right. But I mean, you know, you can still have fun and compete and enjoy the match, but I don't care what anybody says. It's a lot more fun when you're winning.
Yeah.
It just is, you know.
Yeah, I'm bowling the state matches this weekend.
Walk out of league shooting.
Well, yeah, I'm going there to. It doesn't. Yeah, I totally.
I walked out of league with a 7 and change, and we took 5 points, and I was a lot happier than if we would have lost 5 out of 7.
Absolutely,
so that's simple. It's regardless. You know, you're right.
You are the second PBA 50 U.S. champion to have on our show. We had the Honorable Troy Lint on a couple of months ago. He's always in our chat here. He had very nice.
Troy.
He had very nice things to say about you, and what a hell of a year he had last year, man. He was on
incredible,
fire.
Incredible. And Troy is an example of one of those guys that chose to work for a living when he was younger and didn't get the chance to bowl on the tour. You know, and life deals you the hand you're dealt with, and you play the cards and you make your choices, and so be it. But man, you know, he came out ready for the PBA 50 Tour, and you know, the guy can throw it. There's no doubt the guy can throw it. And if he had been bowling on the tour when he was younger, I wouldn't have bet against him winning on that tour. You know, he's a player. He's a good bowler, and you know, at the end of the day, I don't care if you're left-handed, you're right-handed, you're two-handed, one-handed. The results don't lie.
Right.
You know, and he bowled great. And, you know, to top it off, he doesn't run around and beat his chest in. He doesn't run around and tell you how great he is. He thanks you when you tell him, you know, nice bowling. He says, thank you. You can tell he means it. He's humble.
Yep.
But he's still confident. He still believes in himself. And I was happy. It was good to see a guy like that have a good year on tour. Ron Moore did it, worked his whole life and went on the 50 tour and was successful. You see it happen, and they're feel good stories. And it's nice when they're nice guys too. And, Troy's a nice guy. I can sure the people on the East Coast are going, oh, you don't know Troy, whatever, Troy's a nice guy.
No, he is.
Troy's a nice guy. So
he's genuine.
Lenny Boris is another one.
Yeah. Oh, Lenny's phenomenal too. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. But like a guy that we all knew who Lenny was, but not for what he did on the regular PBA tour, what he's done. Most people know because of what he's done on PBA 50 and USBC and Team USA now. But like we've all known how good Lenny is for a long time. But it's like, all right, you know what? I'm going to go out on the senior tour now and kick ass.
Right. And it's with Troy, it's the same thing. Honestly, if you lived probably anywhere west of Pennsylvania, you probably didn't even know who Troy Lent was, unless you crossed his path somewhere, and got to see him. But everybody in the East Coast, especially in the Northeast Coast, they knew who Troy Lent was for years, and they knew what he was capable of doing. And he just didn't get the opportunity to prove that to people or show people until he went on the PBA 50 tour this year. So, it's just one of those things. Guys don't just magically go out there and just get good. Guys have been good for a while, and life has kept them out of the tour for whatever reasons, and that's the way it is. And maybe Troy would have liked to have done it differently. Maybe Ron would have liked to have done it differently, but that's not the path they had to go down. And they took advantage of the opportunities when they did, and they were ready for them. Again, being ready for the opportunity when you have the chance to be successful is important. And they did. They were great. And, my definition of great is the Hall of Fame. So Ron Moore's in the Hall of Fame. Troy Lent's not as of yet. In 5 years from now, we may be having a conversation where Troy Lent's in the Hall of Fame. I don't know. Sure. Time will tell. But the guy had a great year, 100%. He had a great year. He bowled well all year. He did everything he was supposed to do. He knocked the pins down. He won the tournaments. My hat's off to him. And like I said, it's easy for me to say because he's a nice guy, and it makes it even easier. So everything that he's achieved and he's gotten, it's well deserved. He's earned it, and I'm happy for him.
Final question. Speaking of guys who should be in the Hall of Fame as well and may end up there eventually, is the aforementioned Robert Smith. He's obviously eligible for the tour as of right now. What do you expect out of Maximum Bob this year?
We're not kids anymore. He's 50, and injuries are a part of life. And I know he says he's healthier than he's been, and I'm happy to see that. I just bowled with him last weekend in a regional. He looks great. He's throwing it great.
Yeah.
It's going to depend on how bad he wants it, and honestly how his body holds up to the traveling. And even he said that he hasn't been tested week in and week out, game after game. And for the game's sake, for the fans' sake of me being a fan of bowling and watching bowling, I hope we don't get cheated of watching Robert compete at a high level, and I hope he does win and achieve some things that he didn't get to achieve on the national tour, because he's a unique talent and he's a phenomenal bowler. And Robert falls into the same category as Troy. He's just a hell of a human being. He's a cool guy to be around, and to predict what Robert's going to do, you can only hope he stays healthy and that he lives up to the hype, because he should win out there on that tour. And if he stays healthy, he should win quite a few times. Just hopefully not at my expense, Robert, if you're watching, but so be it if it is. I hope I do get the chance to bowl Robert for a few titles out there. But as a fan, I look forward to seeing what he can do. And, we may be in 8 months, 12 months, whenever the season is. I think it's the end of August. So in 8 months from now, we may be saying congratulations to Robert the same way we say congratulations to Troy. He may have that kind of year. He's definitely capable of it. Will it happen? I don't know, but I'll be rooting for him. As long as it's not at my expense, I'll be rooting for him. He's good for the game. He's good for the game. He really is. And he's a lot like me. He calls it like he sees it. He doesn't sugarcoat things. He doesn't play favorites. He gives credit where credit's due, and he works hard at his craft, and he loves the game. And, I wish him nothing but success. And like I said, in a perfect world, him and I will have a lot of title medal matches this year.
That's right.
And if not, then I'll
Looking
be the
forward
first one
to it.
behind him. I'll be the first one behind him cheering him on. And, hoping that he wins his share out there, because he definitely deserves it as much as anybody, so.
Well, we're going to be rooting for both of you, and it's such a blessing to have you on this show. Real treat to talk with you and meet you and hear your stories.
Amazing insight. Amazing insight.
It's a fantastic
Love this
show.
stuff.
Yeah, we really appreciate you, Michael.
This was
appreciate it.
A learning lesson for me as anybody was that another show that 2 hours just completely flew by. This was some good stuff.
Yeah.
So now Johnny's going to shoot 290, but he's going to dump his last ball in the gutter because he didn't take the.
No, it's not that. I live for that part. It's getting out of the gates that I struggle.
Oh, gotcha. Gutter and then off the sheet.
Right, better.
And the funny part is when Robert came on, he bowled league right after and shot 300.
That he did.
Yeah.
We gave him the rub. So hopefully you have the same results next time you pick up a ball.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not as cool as Robert. I don't have the podcast here right in my pro shop. I can't go out to the lanes and bowl now and be
had people handing him beers and everything.
Yeah,
it was like he was a garage mechanic or something there.
I mean, in a way it's kind of weird, but we've always watched Kingpin. We always watched Tin Cup. We watched Happy Gilmore and Happy Gilmore was what it was. It was a parody of golf and so forth. But
it's meant to be.
But the way that the public took to Happy Gilmore and the way they did things with him, how Happy was a regular guy, and that's how Robert is. He's just a regular, cool kind of dude that you would hang out with, and you'd see people do that. Strangers would come up to him, and Robert would treat him like he's known him for years. He's put his arm around him, and hey, bud, let's go get a drink and whatever. That's just how Robert is, and it's like you guys were talking about the show. He's lived everywhere. He's acclimated to every climate he's been living in, every environment he's been in. He's just that kind of dude, and it's just cool to watch stuff like that. He
even looked like the dude from Big Lebowski. Actually,
I was going to say he's the Big Lebowski.
The dude.
Yeah, he's the Big Lebowski with some talent.
with a whole lot of talent. He wasn't Donnie, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Johnny, anything else?
No, this was again an absolute honor to have you, Michael, and here's to continued success on the PBA 50 tour, and we'll be rooting for you. And as we say to everybody, thank you for taking out 2 hours of your time to spend it with us and all of our loyal fans. So appreciate it very, very much.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. And I hope that I don't know how many viewers you get, but I hope that a lot of the viewers take something out of it like you did, and can use it, and it makes them better on the lanes for it. Because ultimately that's what we're here for, is we're trying to grow the game and make it better for everybody and keep the sport alive so that, your kids, Johnny and Ocho's kids and whoever else is having kids can still compete. And maybe one day they can say, hey, you know what? I made a living just throwing a bowling ball. That would be cool. And Troy, I can't wait to see you too. April's coming up pretty soon here, buddy.
All right, man.
All right, Michael. Thanks for coming on, buddy. And we'd like to have you on in the future, and we'll definitely stay in touch with you.
You say when.
All right.
Great, man.
Sir.
All right. You
have a
guys
good
take
night,
care.
Michael. Thanks.
I didn't want to interrupt Michael with the real star of the show.
Me.
Has she hit the cutoff man yet?
Little sleepy lady wanted to say hi.
She still hasn't hit the cutoff man. She's working on it. It's the off season now.
Yeah, she's good. She's hitting the cutoff man now.
So cute. Oh, she's so adorable.
She's the best. I mean, how do you not want to?
Another fantastic show, gentlemen.
Thank you, Troy, for being here as always.
Yeah.
Keeps getting better every single week. And next week is no exception. We have the one and only Mark Baker coming on the show. Looking forward to having him on the show. And
my biceps will still be here regardless of what COVID can do.
He was a big part of the PBA tour on ABC as I was growing up. I always loved watching Mark on TV, and I can't wait to dive into some of his stories. But good job, Johnny Ocho, as always. Another
what a great guest. What a great guest Michael was.
He was. He absolutely was.
I don't want to say I was overly surprised because I know I've had several conversations with him, but that was a really super duper deep.
Yes.
That was a lot of real
we get new shit with every guest though. Seriously, that's what's fun about it because they each tap into a new.
There's so much that's the same, and they just keep
different nuance of what you go through.
What, Johnny?
There's always wow, we didn't think of that. Wow, we never knew that.
Every single PBA champion that we have here is they all have some things that are exactly the same, but then they all throw in their 10 cents. That just makes
one thing that's different, and it's and it's always like, holy shit,
like Wikipedia, but
I would have never thought of that. Yeah, on steroids.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, look, we always say this, like even Belmo, just the transparency of bowlers. It's just, I'm telling you, they're unlike any other athlete in any other sport. It's just, it's always fun listening to them and hearing, how tough it was on the tour and having to be in a different city every week. And, I was amazed that he was able to wind it down and just go to sleep, man. My adrenaline would be flowing all freaking night, dude. I could never sleep after bowling a TV show or stuff like that. But anyway, I know you're tired, Johnny. You're hungry.
And Popeyes
I'm hungry.
And come on,
Ochi, I hope you feel better, buddy. Kind of. I mean, not
feel
not
lousy.
really.
Feel
Yeah,
terrible.
well.
Coach, feel better.
terrible.
Say hi to Jen and the baby, and hope the baby gets better too. Rob,
She's already better. Everybody's better. You kidding me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Johnny. Everybody else,
COVID can't hold shit on us.
thank you for being here, everybody. Another great show. We will be back next week with Mark Baker. I hope everybody has a good night. And again, Doc Sullivan, you know what to do.